Michigan Cannabis Farming, Growing on 23, Episode 1, Preparing the Property. Here we're using a excavator to drain a swamp. By moving this water, it makes it this standing water, giving it a path to flow down. It gave us a way to move more of our equipment up to one of our grow sites. It's very nice to see hydraulic equipment at work. When you're cannabis farming, one of the main things of any agricultural business is the soil, your living soil food web. Earth is heavy. You'll see many indoor farmers use perlite and coconut husk. The reason being is because that's light, but it does not have the same nutrition as a nice heavy living soil does. But to move earth, you need earth movers, and this piece of equipment is extremely expensive. Just moving yards of soil, working that earth. At this point, you can see the standing water, which becomes our driveway to our greenhouse. At this point, we had a couple different plans on where the grow site would be. We ended up choosing this berm for the best soil and ease of access to the grower, which is obviously myself. At this point, the water begins to flow from a high potential down to the low potential through the path of least resistance. We end up putting a culvert in, and that keeps us from flooding through the month of May. And May was a very wet season in 2019 for anyone that was out there growing. A lot of farmers had their seeds washed away and their fields flooded. The next thing we needed to work on at this property, since there was no electricity and there's no well, we needed to have some type of irrigation pond put in. So what you're seeing now is my landlord putting in a ramp to drive down to one of the lower swamp areas so he could dig a pond. Nothing big, maybe a 5-6 yard pond that we could use the pump from. Again, at this point in time, we were thinking about growing on 3 different locations on this property. I guess you could call this location number 1, which was near the swamp, near the road. Location number 2, which would be the berm, our greenhouse site, and location number 3, which was the back part of the property. Each site had its pros and cons. I prefer to grow on the site that has the best soil. So that was site number 3 in the back. It also was the most untamed and ended up just being a disaster. You'll see that in future episodes when I got a Ford 600 tractor buried. The berm also kind of poor soil. It's just shitty construction soil, so it's been moved and ripped up, but the plants did fine. There was no nutrition issues. So here he's just playing on an excavator, playing around. Instead of driving around, he decided to drive through a big old ditch. So after he makes this ramp downwards, what he does is digs a pond, which I didn't get video footage of, but like I said, we dug maybe a 6-yard pond. Don't you wish you had an excavator? Look at those tank treads at work. Maneuvered through that loose, wet, gravelly soil with ease. Obviously, my landlord is a skilled operator. He makes this look easy. For anyone that has not ran large equipment, the skilled operators make it look very easy. I was able to try my hand at some of these controls. You start off real slow, but once you get the hang of it, it is a lot of fun. So off to the left here, kind of in the top left corner, that's a low spot that already has standing water, just not very deep, maybe an inch or two, and that would have dried up by September. So all we're going to do is drive over there and dig a nice little hole. By going further into the ground, that water temperature will stay cooler, thus preventing evaporation. At this point, I had to question why we chose to drive down the ramp instead of just driving around this, I guess you could call it a berm, but we could have just drove around. So I think my landlord enjoys playing with heavy equipment, and I guess who can blame him? But it would have been much quicker if we would have just drove the long way around. we go. We made it through the ramp. I wasn't able to film us digging the pond. Nice shot at a couple Canadian geese here. Who just doesn't love some wildlife? We made a massive mess, but it was fun watching Earth be moved. That ramp area would become quicksand for the next couple, well, let's call it a month. If you stepped on that stuff, you'd sink right up to your chest. It was nasty, nasty quicksand. Lose a boot. So here we go, headed to the pond. At this point, we dug the pond, and this was the other route that we could have just drove there, which is why I was confused. I had assist, but as you can see, right over there, we cleared a spot that we were going to grow. I didn't want to, just due to how close it was to the road. Same right here, we cleared a spot. Just two little small spots. I think my landlord wanted us to just kind of plant autoflowers, and there's our little pond right there, which is maybe 4 or 5 feet deep. So this, we can call this grow site number 1. Just not the best soil. Little selfie shot.
Boom. Thumbs up, baby.
But I did not prefer site number 1 as a good grow site. Just too close to the road, too close to traffic. Still not the best soil, and as you saw, they were very small grow. It did have a nice accessibility. So here we're digging kind of like a trench to separate our property from the neighbor's property to avoid trespassing. Obviously, you want to secure property. This ditch will prevent they'll ditch and concrete blocks. Hopefully will prevent vehicles. Obviously, ATVs, quads, smaller off-road things could still come through. So this was the early chores of the property, just kind of getting it set up, draining water, getting the irrigation pond set up. First time really working with my landlord. Just a nice sunny day, but man, was it chilly. Appreciate you guys watching. Stick around for episode 2. Thanks.